If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easy way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools to let you record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer.
Oh, Pat, it's saying that my speakers are muted.
Saying what?
It says to unmute my speakers so that I can hear the other participants.
Where's your headphones?
Oh, is that where it went?
I don't.
Now. And then I'll send you this recording link so you can have this when you need it, Jonathan. But we'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and start talking as if we're having a conversation. Just learning how to adapt, roll with the challenges. Okay. So I operate an airplane with just my feet on the controls. And I know for a lot of people, it sounds like it must be difficult. But for me, this is all I've ever known. Using my feet as my hands has been as normal as it is for anyone when they are a child learning to use their hands. I was a child learning to use my feet because I was born without arms. And I learned since the beginning that my feet are just as good. I have the same exact bones in my feet as most hands. Yes, toes are shorter, but I'm still able to use them to do the things that most people may not think are possible. And that really tells me, though, about the importance of giving anyone with a disability an opportunity, because there's no telling how they've adapted in the challenges that they have in their life and how they've adapted and learned how to live life independently. We have to respect that everyone's different. Everyone has a different challenge or an obstacle or a circumstance. And so we have to be inclusive and open to the possibilities that people may have. A lot of times people would see me and say, oh, she doesn't have arms, she can't do anything. But that's from a closed mindset. So staying open to the possibility that people with disabilities can be included. We need to give them an opportunity. Let them determine what they are capable of instead of we as outsiders determining what someone is capable of. And that's what I think my story helps to convey, is to see possibility in different ways. My name is Jessica, as I shared. I'm the first armless pilot. So I'm a certified pilot by the Federal Aviation Administration. And I grew up without arms. I learned how to write with my toes. I learned how to eat with my toes. I went to a regular public school, and it was expected that I would do everything. And I did more than everything. Then I probably did more than the average child growing up. I was in dance classes. I started taking Taekwondo when I was 10. At the age of 14, I earned my first black belt. And I was just part of a very supportive group, family, community, and people who wanted to see me succeed. While there still were people out there that told me, that I couldn't do things, and they were limited by what they saw was possible for someone without arms. But boy, did I prove them wrong in my daily life and the challenges and doing, everything that most people think is impossible to do with your feet. But I just did it as it being my normal way of doing things. Now, my disability, I think that's a really good question, is does it define me, or does it define how I live with how I live my life? And I think about it, and in many ways, my disability is why it is that I'm speaking to you today, because of the fact that what I've achieved with my disability has really garnered a lot of attention from the world, not just the United States where I was born, but all over the world. And because of the fact that I did this with my disability, really caught the attention of many people. And for me, I feel fortunate that I'm now able to use it to advocate for so many other people who may not have that same kind of attention or may not be in the public eye. So I think it has defined much of my success and what has been my career now as a professional speaker. But in other ways, I think who I am is aside from the fact that I don't have arms, and it's defined by what my interests are. I'm a very, I should say, spontaneous person, so I can't sit still for very long. And my desire to go out and do things like learning how to surf, learning how to scuba dive, it's all because of the fact that I am that type of person. Anything that passes by me as an opportunity, I grab a hold of and I take it on because I don't want to do the same thing over and over again. And so that part of my personality is who I am, regardless of the fact that I don't have arms. And I think I share much of my mom's personality in that sense. And she had arms. And so for her, she loved to go out and do things. She was an adventurous spirit. And that's who I am. So that's a great question. And I will say my mother is from the Philippines and my father is an American. So I grew up being half Filipino, half American. And I realized that if I'd grown up in the Philippines, my life could have been very different. But being that I grew up here in the United States, and the protections that were in place for people with disabilities, it has made a huge impact and really paved the way for me in the opportunities that I was given and the protections that were in place so that I could feel included. For example, the American with Disabilities Act is something that came out when I was in first grade. And as a 7-year-old in first grade, I didn't know what the Americans with Disabilities Act meant or what it signified. But what it did for me was they started to do things to make the school that I went to, a public school, accessible. And they accommodated my needs to make sure that I could be successful as any student. They made a special desk for me. They changed the door handles. So instead of round door handles, they made lever door handles if I needed to get in and out of the classroom. They made a special space for me in a restroom so that I could use it on my own independently. And so I think those changes that came along when the Americans with Disabilities Act was a huge thing in the 1990s. It had an impact on my accommodations and my accessibility and being able to succeed. Now, I don't know much about the Australian system, so I can't really speak to that and how it's different or similar. But I know that much of my success and opportunity has definitely has been affected because of the fact that there is the ADA in place. If someone were to discriminate and say, well, you don't have arms, you can't do this, I could simply say, well, the Americans with Disabilities Act says that I should be given every opportunity. So it gives me kind of a support system in place if I ever did experience discrimination. And so for me, I think I don't know of any examples in my life when I've had to use the Americans with Disabilities Act and say, you cannot discriminate against my disability because of the Americans with the Disabilities Act. But I think it's been something that has ultimately altered my life in a way that I may not even know of now. But for example, becoming a pilot. I wanted to become the world's first armless pilot. And sure, people could have said to me, you can't do that. In fact, I don't even remember one person who told me you can't become a pilot because you don't have arms. So I was fortunate to have such great support and not experience discrimination. Now, there were some unspoken things about whether I was capable of flying a plane by myself. And a lot of times people, maybe they didn't blatantly say it out loud, but they thought it, and you knew it by their body language and the way that they looked at me, that they thought, wow, I don't know about this endeavor of becoming a pilot. But it really fueled me to keep moving forward and defying the expectations by pushing forward and not giving up. And it took 3 airplanes, 3 different flight instructors, flight training in Florida and California, and then Arizona, my home state. Numerous hours of trial and error. What's going to work? What's not going to work? Is this safe? Can I fly a plane safely with my feet in this position? It was a ton of trial and error, which most student pilots don't have to necessarily go through because they fly the plane that everyone else learned how to fly a plane with their hands. But for me, in the position I have to have my feet in to fly a plane safely, we had to figure out what was going to be the safest way to do it. And if something didn't work, how could we make it work? It was really about figuring it out and finding a way. Now, what's next for me is a great question, because I think all the time about my challenges and how I love to be challenged and I love to be stretched. And I'm very passionate right now about something that's pretty amazing. It's a new project that we've been working on, and it's building a custom airplane for someone without the use of arms. So using essentially a kit airplane, building it from scratch and designing it and customizing it so it's very comfortable for someone to fly with their feet. And I know it sounds strange, but it's considered an experimental airplane, and it is going to be an exciting project, but not only for me, but I found that there is a future aviator out there who was also born without arms, and he's interested in flying, but he's still a teenager now. But in the amount of time it will take us to build this airplane and custom design it for someone to fly with their feet, by that time, when we're finished with the plane, which is like it's a pretty big project. We call it Project 2025. When we finish with it, he will be of age so that he can learn to fly in the plane as well. So that is a huge endeavor, and that's the next thing in my world as far as challenges, is building an airplane custom for someone without arms. And this will mean so much more flying time for me, because I am somewhat in a cramped position. When you think about the way I fly a plane, I have my feet up on the controls, my foot falls asleep, sometimes I get a cramp. So it's not the most comfortable for me. But now that we have this design in mind of making it so that I can fly a plane comfortably, I can fly for hours. And it will be wonderful to see how we can continue to get the message out there with aviation, how to get the message out there that disability does not mean inability, and how we can continue to advocate. I'm looking here, Jonathan. Now I have this recorded. I've answered all of your questions. If there's anything else. Oh yeah, my website. Okay. Hopefully you can cut this out. If anyone wants to find out more about me, please go to jessicacox.com, or you can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Find me there, follow me on social media. Please also look into my book. I wrote a book called Disarm Your Limits, the flight formula to lift you to success and propel you to the next horizon. So you can check out my book, or you can just follow me and go to jessicacox.com. Oh, I see you said here, provide links. So I will send you, I'm going to put here, Jonathan, my website so that you can add that in there. And then this should come up. There's my website, my Facebook handle, JCMS official. There you go. This is probably the most commonly followed Facebook page, is JCMS official. If you can just, Jonathan, if you can add that to the, that would be great, because that's on Facebook. And then my LinkedIn, I think, is just Jessica Cox. So I'll just put that in here as well. And I will send you this recording once it's converted. I have your email, so I can send that over. Is there any other email you'd like me to send the recording to? Will that work? What I sent the invite to? Okay. Do you have another email address then? That I could send you that video? Oh, cool. Okay, great. I'll send that once it converts to a file. I'll send you the file, and then sorry, that's my dog here on the floor. So he's in the room. So I think that's everything. Is there anything else you need from me? You want anything else? Do you need anything else from me, Jonathan? Pictures or anything to help with the story? Okay, sure. Sounds good. Great. Okay, I will let you know if there's any required edits, and then otherwise I'll send you this link with I guess. You're so welcome. I like that you know sign language. I'll do that with my foot too. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks for adapting to the situation. And you take care.